Hello, this is Renew Education. Once again, we have another case study. This is a simple one, and I call this one Bridge, Cantilever, or Implant. I'm going to talk a little bit about how to treatment plan around this or the options you have. The problem is that they all will work in different capacities, and they all will work depending on kind of things you can't tell, is like the load on the back teeth and biomechanics and things like that. But also you can't always predict like something like this one losing here. But this is the one that we are looking at extracting. This one has become hopeless, didn't crown that tooth and had that root canal and it's fractured down. And let's talk about that one as possibly like an immediate placement as well. So let's look at the treatment assessment here. Most things are good. You have a bone density is a green. You have an IA nerve, which is very green as well. You have facial bone in the light green, detached gingiva, and you have a orange constriction. When you look at, not in this particular area, but when you start looking at other teeth, you run into this constrictive quality to the front teeth here, or that facial plate is very thin there. Maybe I should have said the facial plate was even more than light green. Maybe that's more of a yellow, but doesn't matter. Over here is why also I decided to say that this is a orange constriction, partly because he had implants done, I'm not really sure when, but probably a good 10, 15 years ago. And the doctor had put this one in, that one looks good, and the bone is holding and things like that. But when you go into this next one here, the constriction kind of threw the doctor off, and that implant is very angled, and you have a little bit of lingual bone here, and he's perforating a little bit through the lingual side. So this angulation and the tooth position threw the doctor off, or maybe that's what they wanted, I'm not sure. But it's holding and it's been in function for a long time. So things don't have to look great in an x-ray, they just have to work for the patient, and that's this case. And then let's look at this other one here. Move that over. That's the third one. So here, that constriction is where it kind of limited the amount of space a little bit, but not too bad. The cortical nature of the bone right here, unfortunately over time, you're going to get a little recession here. So it's kind of hard to determine exactly where you should be putting the top of the implant for long 10 plus years kind of thing. But here he has a little bit of the exposure of the implant. So let's look at our number 19. Here is what we're looking at, trying to figure out what we want to do here. Now, the first thing is we know that this is hopeless, so we're going to extract it. And he's got 3 implants here. Usually when somebody has 3 implants in a quadrant, I start to think more quadrant dentistry. I start to think more about prosthetics and how that could work. So you could do a 4-unit bridge across here, knowing that he doesn't have strong biomechanics here on the cantilever. If you don't feel comfortable with that, then I would say go with the implant. This is a person that's not retired, and so I don't feel so comfortable with that, and I think that that's a little bit too much load. This is also a case that you talk about with patients if you did an all-on-4 or all-on-6. This is very much a setup for an all-on-6 case where you would basically go all the way across, and typically the molar area is where it's cantilevered. So then the question is well, what's the difference between a bridge, either the 5-unit bridge here with the cantilever or the cantilever of 4 from here to here? Actually, not much. The hybrid is an acrylic, so maybe that lessens the blow. So maybe you make an acrylic bridge with metal abutments or multi-unit abutments or something, kind of mimic a quadrant of teeth on this instead of doing crown and bridge material. So I think this is one of those things that the dental implant world or dentistry hasn't really have an answer for. I think everybody's going to have their own different type of solution here. I have done cases that I call 8 or more where I put in as many implants as possible. I would put an implant in here, I would put an implant in wherever the patient has bone, but then I would typically also bridge things. So like I would bridge from here to here, have an implant here, do a bridge, I would do a bridge, I would do a bridge. So here we've got this oddball of number of implants here. We have 3. So I think the best thing in this case could be just simply put the implant here. Now this tooth is in jeopardy. Now you don't want to be putting an implant. That's a little bit overkill when you can just do a 3 and a bridge here and call it a day. Does the patient want to do a bridge or clean under a bridge is really the question. So here we've already kind of decided with the patient involved that we're going to do an immediate placement. Why an immediate placement? I'm not the biggest fan of immediate placements, but this is a perfect example of like a what I call a starter immediate placement. So you can place here, and let's just take a look here. I'm going to put the line here. Here is where we have nice bone here. We have a nerve that's far down here. We have a good amount of facial bone. We have a decent amount of lingual bone. And if that's a 5.5, let's say that's about 5.5 right there. There we go. So that line is about 5.5. So you can imagine your implant is filling most of that hole, and then you can bring it down. So let's actually see if we have one that we put in here before. Yeah, here we go. So this one is a 5 by probably 11 and a half, and you can drop that in pretty nicely and be pretty secure about doing that. And that one is an 11 and a half. Let's see, 5 by 11 and a half. So that will work out really well, and you're in a good position in that mesial root, and you have bone all the way around. You don't have big gaps, so that I wouldn't even bother grafting that or doing any kind of membrane work. I know a lot of people out there would like to do that, so have at it. It doesn't hurt, or it can hurt sometimes. Sometimes those things, when you do too much graft, you do too much membrane work, that can cause the infection. So it's in this case I wouldn't, but there's a lot of doctors that would just say do it every time, and they're adamant about it. I'm not adamant. I think everything is case by case. I think that you have to make that judgment call yourself, and I think that there's also a lot of dentists that would agree with me is it's not necessary to do more here. I think keep it simple, keep it easy. You will stay out of trouble more often, because patients aren't happy when everything fails and they just spend a lot of money on all of that. The graft materials, the membranes, and the implant all goes down at the same time. So I find more success without doing more work in an environment such as this. Now, what if this one goes down too? This one is the crown needs to be changed. So we're going to change that, but what if it's not restorable? Let's look at that case. And hopefully it's as good as the other one. So if we go right down that tooth area, we have some black out there, so that's pretty common between 2 implants. But here's that nerve. So our facial bone is not great. This is really kind of dropped quite a bit. Here's where you have the foramen coming through, and you have a narrow opportunity window here. So I would probably not put an immediate implant in that one. That's for sure. I would probably wait. I would graft it and be more conservative. So that's just my nature. Let's see what a 4.2 looks like. Yeah, so I would want to try to preserve as much of this ridge at the top, because if I put an implant in and I'm looking at it somewhere here, I got that lingual wall, you know, that could work out okay, but look, you're starting to drop below the other implant heights, which is not great because you might be pulling bone away down from those other 2 implants around. If you grafted it and it holds the bone up through here, then you can get the implant up here, which would be a little bit more in line with the progression of how the bone height is going across these implants, which happens to be right like this. So I think you're going to be pretty successful if you just grafted this one with the extraction, and this one doesn't need any kind of graft in it at all. So here also is a question mark. Do you do a 4.2 like this, or a 3.5, or a 3.7? So that's a judgment call for yourself. I would say probably a narrower might be a little better, so a 3.7, or this is a 4.0 or 4.2 would be the range that I would be looking at in a case like this. So that's this one. This is the lower left one. Like I said, this is a good case for a starter / skilled dentist wanting to do an immediate placement in a molar position. This is a great skill builder. The bone is great. You have a history of success, and you have pretty good access. If you're left-handed, it's even better access. So anything else? I don't think there's anything else to talk about on that one. But anyway, thanks for joining us. And like us on Facebook, and subscribe to us on YouTube, and look for our live broadcasts. We will be broadcasting, and please comment and ask any questions you got, especially during the live broadcast. Then we can get you on board. So great.